Greetings to all of you. As we begin our talk today, let's take a moment to connect with the earth, feel our connection to the sky, and feel our connection to each other. We need that in these turbulent times. This is an intense time on the planet. It feels like every day we're bombarded by more trauma, turbulence, turmoil. Things are certainly getting very polarized here in the States with the Supreme Court decision yesterday. We see increasing turbulence and unrest around the world with the war in Ukraine, with the other trauma happening in other countries with poverty, famine, strife, environmental destruction, climate change, political turmoil and polarization, not to mention the pandemic, increasing violations of women's rights, minorities' rights, humans' rights, animals' rights. We can feel a range of feelings in response to all of this turbulence. Many of us feel confused and frightened, anxious, depressed, filled with grief at the trauma, at the pain, at the suffering. Others of us feel angry and reactive. We want to do something, change something, stop the insanity. And some of us just feel completely overwhelmed and depressed and hopeless. We need to hold with compassion that this is a time of trauma on the planet. And I do believe with the lunar nodes in South Node in Scorpio, North Node in Taurus, all of the unresolved traumas that we've experienced individually in this lifetime and past lifetimes, all of the trauma and suffering of our experience as humanity on the planet is up right now, is up on the surface for us to heal, to transform. As I talk with you today, I want to talk more about those lunar nodes, the Saturn square Uranus, and the Pluto square Mars that we're in right now through July 4th. And I want to speak to you as an astrologer, as a clinical psychologist, and a shamanic practitioner, and as a human on this planet navigating with all of you what it means to be here on the earth in this profound time of transition and transformation. How do we navigate the turbulence? I believe it is critical as we are moving through this intense time that we each find the ways in which we can come to center. Otherwise, the storminess of the times will throw us off balance, or we get pulled into it, identified with it, pulled down by it, overwhelmed by it, or we end up in reaction to it. There are 4 primary trauma responses that we're seeing playing out individually and collectively. Those are fight, flight, freeze, and fawning. Fight is, and they're all coping mechanisms, they're all efforts to protect the self in the midst of trauma. Fight is when you get angry, reactive, you're pushing back, you're trying to protect yourself, to stop the trauma. And we see that playing out not only individually in the increasing gun violence, reactivity, anger, polarization that's happening around us, but we see it collectively with war, with violence, with power over dynamics. And it actually just creates more trauma, more turmoil when we get caught in that kind of fight and reactivity and effort to cope with our trauma that way. We also can see the trauma response of flight. That's an effort to escape, to flee from the trauma. We're actually collectively seeing mass migrations right now as people are needing to take flight from areas that are in war or famine or poverty or trauma. But we also can respond individually with that reaction of flight and try to escape and try to numb ourselves with addictions or escapism or distractions in order to numb out the turbulence and the pain. Then there's the trauma response of freeze. That's when you just go into complete overwhelm and a sense of helplessness and powerlessness. I mean, it's the classic animal response. If I play dead, maybe I won't be attacked. But we as humans can go into that freeze state and paralysis. And then we feel that absolute sense of overwhelm and often hopelessness. The fourth way of coping with trauma is less a trauma response and more a trauma ongoing coping style that we're also seeing in a large way in the world right now. And that's called fawning. Fawning. And what that means, or what that's alluding to, is a tendency that many of us have when we feel in danger or we feel threatened or we're traumatized. We submit, we accommodate. Maybe if I go along with this, I'll be safe, I'll be protected, I won't be killed, I won't be traumatized, I won't die. So we're also seeing, I think, in the world right now, an increasing movement towards more authoritarianism, more power over dynamics by certain leaders, certain corporations, certain people in the world that are trying to feel a sense of security and control by increased power over and tyranny and control over people, over circumstances. And then you're seeing people respond to that with a tendency to submit. If I give my power away, if I accommodate those in authorities, or I find those who are saying they'll rescue me or they'll protect me or they'll make this trauma go away, then maybe I will be safe and secure. It's a very dangerous path. How do we manage all of this? How do we deal with the turbulence in the world right now and our own trauma responses? First of all, I would say it is critical that we hold with compassion all the parts of ourselves. Know that in this turbulence, we are humans on this planet. We are soul selves having a human experience. We are embodied. We feel the turbulence, the suffering, the pain, the trauma in our own lives and what's going on around us. That's a part of being human and a part of how we are on this earth plane in this dimension to grow and evolve. We're not here to suffer. We're here to grow in love and wisdom. And part of that is through being in this embodied experience and feeling the range of emotions that we experience here on the earth plane. So, first of all, I would say, come to center. Find that way that you can come to a place of calm and stillness, the way you find your way into the eye of the storm, where you can collect yourself, calm yourself, come out of the storm. One way that I do that is through that breathing practice that I mentioned in an earlier video. Breathe in slowly to the count of 6, which symbolizes the energy of life and love. Hold that breath to the count of 2, listening to your own heartbeat. Breathe out to the count of 8, which is the number of balance and harmony, to bring your whole system back in to a state of calm and balance. Tune into your heart. Get out of your mind and come to your heart. And take time in nature. Meditate. Do whatever it is that you need to do to come to center. Because what's critical in this time of turbulence is that we step back from the turmoil to be in a centered self, to reclaim the witness self, the observing part of us that is the bridge between our soul self and our human experience, our personality self. When we're in that more centered witness self, we can observe what's going on around us. We can observe our own responses to the turmoil and trauma in our lives individually and collectively. And we're then working it from a place of alignment, a place of being centered. This is much of what Kristina Lee and I talk about in our book, From Trauma to Freedom. And there are a lot of practices in that book that can guide you in how to deal with your own trauma and the turmoil of these times. Secondly, as you do get centered, I encourage you to come back to your heart. Come back to that place of compassion. Observe what you're feeling. Observe what's going on around you. Hold all of your experience of that and your feelings about that with compassion. Hold with compassion the part of you that's furious, that's angry, that wants to lash out. Hold with compassion the part of you that is in despair and depression and grief. Hold with compassion the parts of you that are frightened and anxious. And hold with compassion the parts of you that are absolutely overwhelmed. As you hold all the parts of yourself with compassion, it supports you in being more in the wholeness of who you are and making whatever choices you're going to make from an integrated, centered place. It also guides us in remembering that we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. As we are able to accept all of those aspects of ourselves, then we are more able to hold with compassion what is going on globally in our global community and that range of reactions, trauma responses, range of emotions. Holding what's going on around us with compassion doesn't mean it's all okay. No, just as it's important that we not act out of a trauma response, it's destructive in our world that so many are operating out of a trauma response. And again, that is a range of ways in which that can play out. But we're seeing very much the turbulence, violence, polarization, power over dynamics, experiences of powerlessness that are all a part of the play of trauma. Active trauma and trauma responses. We are in a world right now that is full of enactment of the shadow side of our capacity as humanity. And I do believe that shadow is up. Those hidden, repressed, destructive aspects of ourselves are up right now so that we can hold it in consciousness, so that we can see it in order to heal it, in order to transform. So first of all, get centered. Second of all, hold yourself with compassion, which allows you then to be more compassionate to others. Then it's important to connect. Connect with all those parts of yourself, dialogue with them, understand them, know where they're coming from, be aware of how what's going on in the world right now may be triggering early trauma in your life or past life trauma. As you bring that to consciousness and hold that in your heart with that witness self and with your soul self, you're able to heal it. You're able to release it. Connect to the earth. The earth herself is going through transmutation, transformation. We're seeing that in the earthquakes, the storms, the fires, the floods. The earth herself is going through a reset. Connect with her. Know that we are part of her. She is part of us. We're in this together. Connect with the sky. Connect with cosmic consciousness, and know that we are held by forces larger than ourselves, that we are in a great unfolding from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius, from the end of a 24,000-year precessional cycle into a new one. This is the time of transformation that prophets, shamans, spiritual teachers, indigenous elders have talked about for thousands of years. We are there now, and all of us who are here have chosen to incarnate here in this time to be a part of this process, to experience it, and to support the earth and humanity in moving through this profound time of death, rebirth. It is the death of old paradigms, old ways of being, in order to move into a higher consciousness, in order to reclaim our higher selves, in order to remember that we are energy beings having an embodied experience, to remember that we are soul selves, part of the cosmic consciousness, here to experience this time of transition and transformation. When we hold that consciousness, then it helps us to see the turbulence around us in context. It's like watching the final intense labor pains before birth. Those intense labor pains are a time of intense pain, often anxiety, often feelings of overwhelm, often sense of I'm going to die, leading to new life, leading to a new form, new ways of being. That's the time that we're in now. And when we can hold that larger perspective and come back into connection with our higher consciousness, with cosmic consciousness, with that remembrance that we are at one with all that is, then we'll still have all our feelings about what's going on in the midst of the turbulence. But we will hold that awareness of what we're moving towards, what is being birthed in this time. We can still hold with grief what is ending and the pain and suffering that's happening in that transition, and hold the intention, the energetic awareness, the hope and vision of the new life, the new paradigms, the new forms that we're moving into. When we're able to do that, then we're able to hold that deeper awareness of our interconnectedness with each other. and our interconnectedness with the galaxy. We're a part of the galactic community. We are ultimately a part of Source, a part of an expression of cosmic consciousness. We are soul selves who will never die. When we can hold that awareness and hold that consciousness that we are here to be a part of this experience of transformation, this collective death, rebirth, this experience on the earth of her transmutation, then we can be the guides, the healers, the midwives, the holders of others in that process. Then, and this is part of what I so value about this community, we can connect with each other, we can support each other, we can collaborate with each other, because we need to know that the existing systems of government, of corporations, of economies, of medicine, of politics are not going to solve our problems. Those systems are a part of what have increasingly, across the last 5,000 years in particular, been what have led us into this level of destruction and turbulence and trauma as humanity. We can't look to external authorities, religious leaders, government officials, people outside of us to solve the problem and rescue us. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We have to open to our higher consciousness and our interconnectedness with each other and our oneness with all that is, and stand from that place. Then we can hold that higher consciousness in a way that will seed it in the collective and help with the transformation of the collective into the new paradigms, into the higher consciousness. And then we can also act from a centered place and act with care and consciousness, so that whatever steps we take to be an energy of healing, of light and love in the world in this time is coming from that alignment with our soul selves, our centeredness in our true selves, our connectedness with the earth and sky and cosmic consciousness, our spirit guides and helpers, our community of collaborators, our co-creators on the planet in this time. That is where the change will come from. It will come from within us as we reclaim our capacity as energy beings, as beings of light and love, to reconnect with the oneness of all that is and begin to emanate that, live that, act from that place, find the creative expression of the new paradigms and new ways of being. So as we move through this turbulence, again, hold with compassion all of who you are, all of what you feel. Come back to center. Hold that higher consciousness, that vision of what we're moving towards. Find your tribe. Connect with others who are awakening, who are seeing the larger context, who are coming from a centered place and in that alignment with the soul self, in that interconnectedness with all that is. And then act from there. May we together come to that place of living from the heart with courage, and emanating that energy of healing, wisdom, light, and love in the world in this time. As we heal, then we support others in healing. We support the healing of the world. And these transits that we're in, Saturn square Uranus, will be going on through the end of this year. Saturn has been squaring Uranus all of 2021, and it will be all of 2022. Remember, that is the tension between the old forms and the new forms we're moving into. And right now, things are really intensifying because of the Pluto square Mars, which the shadow side of that, when it's not worked consciously, is about power over, violence, reactivity, war, acting out. But the deeper meaning of Pluto square Mars, Pluto in Capricorn, we are breaking out of the structures and systems of the past. They are all deconstructing in order to move into the new forms. And Mars in Aries to guide us in daring to act from that place of transition and transformation to move into the new forms. May we all hold the energies of this time with that higher consciousness so that they can guide us and support us through this time of death, rebirth, transition, and transformation, so that we become a part of the healing and the movement into new life, and help hold those who are overwhelmed in the intensity of this time. Thank you for all of the ways in which you're holding that consciousness, for the connections we have in this community, for the ways we can connect with each other around the globe and across the galaxy. Blessed be.